this one. All right. Is everybody ready? You gotta mute your computer over there, because I can hear myself, which is beautiful. I don't mind saying, but. So tonight we have a great night. We have 2 cameras, 4 laptops, 2 coasts of the country, and a great thing to talk about. We're going to be talking about, all year long, we talk about do this, do that, try to get your SEO better. But at the end of the day, if you can't measure it, you don't know if it's working or not working. So I asked 2 super smart people who do this for a living to help us out with how you guys can just work on metrics that will help you figure out, are those changes you're making having any impact on that? So way out on the left coast is Brian LaFrance. He is the CMO of Authority Labs. Oh, I can't point to our sponsors. They are our half of our venue sponsor. They have a couple of different tools out there that a lot of SEOs use. They do a lot of rank tracking, and he'll be talking about their newer tool that's been out for a little while, as Marty will, that helps claw back some of the not provided data. But Authority Labs has been helping SEOs figure out value and ROI from the work they've been doing for a long time. Marty Martin is one of the managing partners at Adapt Partners, which is our, what do we call you, gold level sponsor? Platinum, diamond, whatever the top is. And they've been there for a long time for us. Very appreciative that their sponsorship helps pay for this and other things as well, like beer. No, it's not true. But they'll both be helping us out tonight. Marty is here in-house, so you can pepper him with questions afterwards if you want to hang around. There's also a camera right there, so if you have questions during the night, just step up to that camera. That way Brian will be able to see you. You won't be on camera until you ask a question. That camera's kind of dead until we need it, so don't feel bashful about standing there. But other than that, let's get started. Marty Martin.
So hello. So he mentioned that he had 2 smart people. One of those that was going to be here tonight isn't able to be here, so I'm here. So I'm just curious, like, how many of you all own your own business? Okay. And how many of you are agency people? Okay. And how many of you are in-house digital marketers, SEOs, something like that? Okay. And then who didn't fall into one of those categories? And what do you do? I'm a writer. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you all for coming. We are going to talk tonight about measuring the work that we do as digital marketers, as business owners. If you're a business owner, this is some of the things that you can track yourself, or if you're working with an agency, some of the things that you should be hearing from them. If you are an agency, hopefully you can pick up some tips as well. If not, then it'll certainly hopefully reinforce what you're already doing. So without further ado, I'm going to come up here. So as an agency, we measure a lot of different things for our clients. Our cornerstone as an agency is SEO, and we do a lot of other things as well, conversion rate optimization, and all these sorts of things have some. All of these sort of things. Is that better? Okay. So all of these sort of things have some sort of reporting metric that you want to report back to your client. Or that we use internally. Our clients may never see it, but we use it to measure success as well. There are some things that are useful to us that would really just confuse the client or be too much detail. So one of the tools that we really, really like internally that we use for ourselves as well as that we surface for our clients is a tool called Sife. It's like Gecko. Does anybody use a tool like that? So this is an analytics dashboard, and it's a really interesting tool. It allows us to compare data from different sources, all on the same screen. It has some really useful features. You can pull in your own custom data with left. Yeah, it's your top left too. You'll see it says organic audience overview. So this is just pulling in data from Google Analytics, right? So most of you probably, use that. If not, it works with other analytics as well. And like I said, it also has custom API pushes and pulls that you can do and pull in your own analytics if it doesn't support it natively. But this is a client of ours that this is a dashboard example from a lot of different clients. It's not one particular client. But the nice thing about this tool is you can look at it from a monthly perspective, or you can go in and you can change the date and go back as far as you want, and it'll update your analytics and pull in whatever value that you select. And this will take just a second because that was a year worth of data. But so some of the other things that you can do with this, as you can see, I have our logo here, so you can pull in your client's logo. This is useful too because this tool has the ability to go into a TV mode. So you can put it up on a really big monitor in your office, or your client can do the same thing, and it can switch back and forth between different dashboards. So if someone on our team works on 3 different client accounts, then we'll have this on a monitor that they can look at that will bounce back and forth between their client accounts. Or if you are the client, we may have a dashboard for you that has sort of an executive summary. Then there's maybe a technical SEO side of it, a content side if you have content creation folks, and all sorts of different things that you can pull in and make really useful to the client. So this is the primary way that we report our success on an ongoing basis to our clients. So they can pull this up anytime they want, and it contains data up to the moment, which is very, very nice. Now, we also do a monthly email to clients to say, here's what's happened this month. Here's how your KPIs have changed over the last 30 days. And here's what we're going to be doing going into the future. That's an interesting sound. I don't think I'm doing that. But okay, so there's lots of different ways that you can pull up your analytics data. Pretty much any way that you can view data within Google Analytics, you can have that view here as well. It's basically point and click. It's very simple to set up. And a very powerful tool for visualizations for your client. Because if you're in an agency, or if you really run your own website at all, you know that the data can get to be really sort of overwhelming at some point. So here we have the organic audience overview. It just has page view sessions and users over time. In the upper right, we pulled in Google AdWords data. So if you have a pay-per-click team, or you run your own pay-per-click account, with Google or with Bing or whomever, you can pull that data in. So I have 2 different views here. This is just an example of one way that we might look at it. Clicks over cost are the 2 graphs there. So there's a lot of different ways that you can pull in this data as well. But it's a useful way just to look at the overall performance of an account. You can also drill this down to the actual campaign. And to ad groups, so you can have a whole pay-per-click dashboard, or multiple pay-per-click dashboards that have multiple campaigns and those sorts of things. Ad infinitum, it would get kind of crazy at some point, but you can do that if you want. It's really useful too if you're doing a specific campaign that's time-based, so you can pull this dashboard up on the wall and actually watch it as it happens. It also supports the Google Live. So it shows visitors as they're on your site and those sorts of things, although I don't have that up at the moment. Okay, so the top middle is from a tool called Systrix. Has anyone even heard of that tool? Raise your hand. Ah, awesome. Okay, so the Systrix tool, it's S-I-S-T-R-I-X. This is the power tip for the night. This is a German company, and it's a really awesome tool. I love it a lot. It's subscription-based, but one of the things that I really like about it is they have a thing called visibility. Visibility is a metric that they take and they scrape Google, which is probably a bad thing to say, but they scrape Google and for like 100,000 different keywords. And then they rank your website based on how often they see you and where you rank in the Google search results for all these different keywords. And so you get a score that can be measured. Now, what we've done is a custom mashup of that data. So you can see here now these 4 people represent the top folks in the swimming pool industry. Okay, so these are not necessarily clients of ours. However, what this shows is share of visibility, right? So this is not something that you can actually see within the Systrix tool, but we knew that with the data, if we could get visibility scores for all these different folks, we could show it in a graph that would show like a competitive look at, we know that these people are our client's top competitors, and we know who our client is, and so we can show in a chart how much share compared to their competitors, how much share of search visibility they have, which is a really interesting thing for the client or business owner, whomever, who is very focused on competitors. There's not much data that you can pull in competitive analytics that's accurate for a business owner, but they always want it, right? They want to know what is my competitor doing, how are they performing, those sorts of things. So with this tool, we built a API connection on the back end. We pulled in data every day on a well, I won't get into how that. Anyway, we pull the data into this tool and we display it to our client in this way, which gives them a daily look at, how much of the share of search visibility that they have. Does that make sense? The search visibility. Okay. So that's a really interesting. I think it's interesting anyway, as kind of an SEO nerd, way of using the data in the SIFE dashboard. And SIFE, by the way, is CYFE. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of these because they are in the way. Okay. So if you look at the middle left now, you'll see that this is also a Google Analytics view, but of just e-commerce data, right? So as an executive dashboard, this would be something really interesting to our clients so that they can look at year-over-year performance. How much revenue have they had during this particular time period, and how has it performed against the previous time period? So with SIFE, you can set the previous time period as the year or just the previous month. So we always set it. We have a lot of clients who have cyclical sales seasons, so we always set it to year-over-year data. Yeah, it's just a really interesting way, and so it helps us too. We look at this literally on a daily basis, but for this particular client, you can see that they have a peak sales season in the summer, followed by a smaller peak sales season in the fall. And the data, so I'm going to smoosh down a little bit and show that hopefully everybody's familiar with Google Trends. If you're not, Google Trends, you'll be fascinated. But the SIFE dashboard allows you to pull in Google Trends data as well. And so one of the ways that we look at data too is we'll search for things like, in this instance, I'm using swimming pools as an example, pool chemicals on the left and pool covers in the middle. The reason that I do that is because pool chemicals tends to be a pre-season, early opening phrase that shows the seasonality of that term. So when you look at the Google Analytics example above it and the pool chemicals Google trend below it, you see that there's a pretty much a correlation between searches and the traffic that they've gotten, or in this instance conversions that they've had for that term. And then if you look at pool covers next to it, you can see that people do search for pool covers in the summer, but it tends to be more of a closing your pool type of activity to buy a cover to protect your pool during the winter. And so in this instance, there's a much higher peak for that term in the fall, which is what you see in that trends data. So this is another example of, as an agency or as a business owner, of how you can measure what your performance is doing against how the market is acting. So Google Trends is a way of measuring how people are searching within Google, and so you can compare, particularly if you're a seasonal business, how that goes. And you'd be surprised how many businesses are seasonal. I've found that SEO is actually very seasonal. We tend to get way more new business leads in the fall for some reason than any other time of the year. I don't know why that is. People really are excited about SEO in the fall. So the dashboard to the right of the e-commerce data with the orange and the green lines, this is data that we're pulling in from a tool called CallRail. Is anyone familiar with CallRail or call tracking software? So this is actually a Google Analytics view. So rather than going the API route, we have CallRail recording events within Google Analytics. It's something that they natively support, so it's a very handy feature. But with this, we can show actually how many phone calls our client is getting from the activities that we do as SEO. So if you work for an agency or you are a business that gets a lot of phone call leads as opposed to web leads, this is a really important, useful way to track how you're performing as an agency or how your business is doing, or how the agency is doing who's working for you for phone calls. So probably about half of our clients' phone calls is the #1 source of leads for them. It becomes a problem really quick as an agency to prove the ROI if you can't show phone call activity. And with CallRail, I'll give them a shout out. CallRail is a really nice tool. It shows phone numbers, it records phone calls. You can have multiple campaigns, you can have multiple phone numbers, and the way that it works in brief is you add just a small line of JavaScript to your website, and as people come in from different sources, it shows them a different phone number. So if someone comes in directly, they type in your domain name or they use a bookmark, it'll show your normal phone number. If they come in from Google AdWords, it'll show them a different one. If they come in from Google Organic, they get a different, or Bing. And all that data is, when they call, it triggers these events that get recorded into Google Analytics. It's a really, really nice tool for agencies. It's very affordable too, even for local businesses. So we have several local business clients that we use this tool with, and it's very cost effective. So yeah, it's very nice. On the lower right-hand side, you can see you can pull in data from Moz if you want to use that to measure certain trust factors and those sorts of things. You can pull in social media stuff with Twitter, which is useful if you're a social media person. But yeah, so this is, again, I'm just showing Sife. All these sorts of views are actually different ways that we as an agency report on success, and a lot of it just depends on who the client is. If your primary form of leads are if your primary conversion point are leads, then the way that we present your dashboard is very different than if you're an e-commerce company and your primary point of conversion is a purchase. Okay. Now, I myself am a technical SEO, which just means that I have a background in development. And so I spend a lot of time with our clients looking at things like server performance and code architecture, site navigation, issues with Googlebot crawling the site, and all sorts of things like that. And so my dashboards tend to be a little bit more technical in nature. But some of the things that I have, for example, are this pingdom site status thing. So this is something that it's saved our clients a couple of different times. It just shows me, are their sites up, right? So, as an example, we had a client, I'm sure you're all familiar with things like you get a link on Reddit or you get a mention from somebody else and boom, your site's down. So we actually had that happen to a client, not a Reddit, but they got a mention from a very high-profile Twitter user, and it took their site down. We were able to actually see that very quickly. We didn't know that it was coming. So we were actually able to see that the site was down, report it back to the client, and get it fixed. So this updates, as you just saw, I think every 5 minutes. So anyway, that's something really useful as well. If you have a lot of different sites, you can add them into Pingdom, and it'll pull them all in. Or if you just have one, you can do the same thing. It is free for just one, and I think you can get 10 for $14, $15, something like that, and so it's really cheap. But I will say, as an agency owner, tools add up. We're like really total tool nerds at Partners. We spend about $2,000 a month in tools, which is more than we need to, but we like tools. So over on the far right, you'll see data coming in from Google Webmaster tools. So some of this is different alerts, Googlebot issues and things like that. So I use this as a way to find out if there's a problem on the site. So for example, the top one there, you can see a bunch of 404 errors, and this is an issue. This is a WordPress site, and it's an issue with the translation module that this site has. Which we're actually actively trying to fix, but that's really how we became aware of the fact that these pages were down, is through this sort of dashboard. And then the one below that is similar in nature, but it's just pulling in the Google one on top is alerts, I think, and then one on the bottom is messages. But it's different settings that you can pull in, which is really, really helpful. So that is Sife. Any questions about Scythe or any of the other integrations, or maybe you wonder if some particular tool, you can pull in FreshBooks, you can pull in QuickBooks, you can pull in Salesforce, all kinds of stuff into this tool, which is really, really nice. Phil!
But how much does this cost, and at what point does a tool like this become something a single business owner should get? Like, what's that tipping point where they would need something?
Right. So the great thing about Scythe is it's extremely affordable. Most of the tools that I'm going to talk about tonight are mostly affordable at some level. You know, agency accounts tend to cost a lot more than an individual business owner would pay. But I think Scythe is like 10. It's less than $20 a month. I'm pretty sure it's 10 for the smallest account. It's you know, you can't beat that. It's very cheap, and it's a great way to have that up in front of you. So our SEO analysts in our agency, we actually have a separate external monitor just for this sort of thing, clients. And if we're working on a particular client account, we'll pull that dashboard up so we can look at it and have sort of the top of mind. Yes, sir. It does. So the question was, does the Scythe tool include the underlying APIs that I've mentioned? It does include them all except for this one, which came from the Systrix tool, the donut chart in the middle. That was a custom one that we programmed ourselves. But otherwise, yes, everything else you see here is native to Scythe. Doesn't cost any extra. Yes, sir. We do. So Scythe has a really nice user management feature. You can restrict the clients to only seeing their own dashboards or one dashboard. So yes, you can do that. Anyone else? Okay. So moving on, we had talked about Systrix. So this is a chance for you to use this really awesome tool. If anyone wants to have a view of their site, you don't mind everyone else in the world looking at it. This is going to pull up data about your site, like links and visibility data and those sorts of things. But if you're interested, I'll pull it up and then I'll explain to everyone else what the different things are and show that sort of data to anybody. Anybody want to have a site? You can even disclaim that it's yours. Just throw out a site to put up there. Like that. Okay, so one of the reasons I like this tool, so we have several different tools that we use as checks against each other. So we subscribe to Systrix, we subscribe to a tool called href, and we subscribe to Majestic SEO, SEMrush, and we use all these tools and we compare them with each other. Because every now and then you'll have sort of an outlier, and if you were relying on that outlier, then you'd report something to your client that actually wasn't that accurate. So we'll verify certain things before we actually mention it to our clients. So for example, if we see their traffic is down and I use this tool to pull it up and start looking at things, particularly if there's been a Google update recently and it shows some abnormality, then I'll verify that with the other tools as well before I actually say to the client, I think this is why, and so on. But so from here, so you can see the top number, the big blue number, is your visibility score. Because this is a German company, they use commas and not dots. So just pretend like that's a decimal. But you can see there's a lot of different scores here, things that you can look at, top, paths, links, and so on. But the really interesting thing, one reason that I really like this tool, and what you were looking at on that donut chart is the visibility index. And this is what I was explaining earlier about how visible your site is in the search engine. So for this site, you can see that over the last 3 or 4 years, their visibility has declined dramatically. And there could be a lot of different reasons for that, but I actually use this tool in new business calls as well, because you get a lot of new business calls where people are having problems, but they don't want to tell you that they're having problems because they're afraid that you're going to charge them more or something like that. But we don't. But it's good to know, right? I mean, if these people are coming in, whomever they might be, and they've got an active, algorithmic action against them. I want to know that right up front. So the other thing that's really nice about this tool is they actually include a lot of data that you can pull into the chart. So you can see that I just click that, and it's showing a lot of different pins. And these pins actually all correlate, or are all Google updates. So I can look here, and you can look at number 12, and there was a pretty steep fall off between 12 and 13. And so I can kind of correlate changes in visibility to Google updates. It doesn't, correlation doesn't equal causation, but it's a pretty good thing to have when you're looking at data like this. So you can see that pin number 12 there was the Panda update number 26, and there was also a payday loan algorithm mentioned at the same time. Now these are the dates that they're announced. Most people who are doing SEO for a while know that when Google announces something, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the day that it started. It probably started a week or so ago, or even longer. But anyway, it still allows you to correlate, pretty closely to that sort of thing. So you can see that, you've got all of these different numbers and things like that. So as we're trying to diagnose a problem for a client, let's say that, there was one steep drop off and then it kind of leveled off. We'd be looking really closely at the updates that happened right around that time. But you can't use this sort of tool also with blinders on. There may be other issues that are going on as well. So you may have technical problems if the site, if they switched hosting environments and their site slowed down. So now their load time went from 5 seconds till now it's 15 seconds because there's some sort of server configuration that's not correct. Googlebot will notice that and report that back to the algorithms, and they'll actually start to devalue you based on poor user experiences. So you may see a decline that correlates to nothing, or it may correlate to something but not really be the problem. So this tool isn't one way that we diagnose issues like that. But yeah, so now having seen this, does anyone else want to have their site put in there? Now I will say that the smaller the site, the less useful this data becomes. Now this is probably a realty website, so real estate tends to be a little bit more reliable just because it's a more popular vertical. But there you go. So we can see here a pretty steep decline right around number 10. Number 10 was a penguin update. So this site may have some issues with poor backlinking or links that were once good that are no longer good. It could have been a victim of a competitor targeting them, for negative SEO, or whatever. It may be nothing. It may not be that at all. It may be something completely different. But it's usually a pretty strong hunch in that direction. I'll start trying to prove that that's not the case, but it's usually a pretty good indicator that is the case. Any questions about that? This tool? Yeah. This tool starts at about $130 a month, which is why I'm offering it to you now for me to do searches. Anybody else want to look at their data? Yes. Search Clayton realestate.com. Is that right? Okay, so this is a good example of one where we don't have a lot of data on that. So they're showing keyword counts as opposed to visibility data, either because the site is very niche or it's serving a very small population and not showing up enough to be statistically relevant. It doesn't mean that the site is anything wrong with it at all. It just means that you could have a site that has 10 visitors and converts one person a year, but if that one person is a $2 million sale, you're doing all right. So yeah, but from this data, it's improved in the last year or so. Anybody else? No. So this tool. So the question was, how big of a site can this tool handle, and do they charge based on the size of the site? They charge based on the number of queries that I put in there per month. So I have a certain allotment of websites that I can view, but there isn't any restriction as far as which site or any of that sort of thing. One of the best websites out there. Oh. Not much to show there. Sorry, Phil. Yes. Which Jonas? See, there you go. So if any of you are like me and a bit, I'll get you. But if any of you are like me and a bit introverted and you don't want to talk in public, that's okay. You can email me in the next couple of days, and I will pull yours up. 1 second. Yes. So the question was, does it only work on top-level domains, or will it work on like subdomains and things like that? It will work on subdomains. Yes. Jones PC repair. Okay, same thing. So, you know, the less often your site is searched, then the less useful this tool will be to you. So when you start getting to extremely local websites, then it starts to become not as useful. That's where a tool like Authority Labs might be more useful. But anybody want me to pull up another website in this particular tool? I'm going to show you another tool in a second. What is it? Cheappens.com. Yes. We have a client in this industry. But I won't use your data. I won't tell them about it. I can almost guarantee it. If you decide to sell it, let me know. Clever. Okay, so here's the data for this particular site. There looks like there was some volatility around the third quarter of 2012, and it's since kind of popped back up to a little bit less than where it was back in 2011, as far as visibility. Now, this data does correlate to traffic, but not entirely. So you can't rely on it it uses averages to get this data, but it gives you a good example of trends, and you can compare it to, if you know who your client is and you know what their traffic is, then you can look at a competitor and come up with a pretty good guess about what theirs is. It must be Coke.com. This site, this tool will choke on redirects too. So if Coca-Cola.com 301 redirected to Coke.com, then you're not going to get a very good result. So here's the interesting thing about this. Does anyone have a guess about why someone like Coke.com would not have a very high visibility? Okay. That's probably one reason. But let's say, for the sake of argument, that it was a low visibility like that for a huge brand. Any idea why that might be? Well, right. So because they're a brand like Kleenex, right, or Band-Aid, you're not going to really try to rank for something like, adhesive bandage, right? Because people search for you by brand. So that's one reason that you might see someone with a low visibility, but still know that they're a huge brand. So there's Coca-Cola.com. We're going to do the Cola Wars, do Pepsi. Can you compare it to? Well, yes. It's been a while since I've done it within the tool because we have that other tool that we use, but give me 1 second. Oh, the other nice thing too about this tool is you can see this add pin. So if you have an event that you know about, for example, your server was down for 5 days. Well, it may be in 18 months. You may not remember that exactly, but you could add that in here in the same way you can add a note into Google Analytics. All right, who's got the Pepsi domain? What is it? Any others we want to throw in there? Cheerwine. Yes. All right. RC Cola. Now, see, I like RC Cola. This may take a moment. That green line at the very bottom, that's Cheerwine. Now, if you pulled up Cheerwine by itself, I'm sure that it would look much more impressive than this. There you go. So Coca-Cola and Pepsi, looks like they've traded positions in the last 2 years with it looks like Pepsi being on top for 2012 and part of 2013, and then Coca-Cola back on top, but they've both declined, interestingly. Anybody else, before I move on to the next tool, want to see some data from any particular site, your own site? Yes, sir. Wait a minute, I'm too slow. M-E... .com. Is that correct, the way I've got it? Okay. Spell it for me one more time. Like that? Okay. So there is no data for that. Anyone else before I move? Going once. Oh, yes, sir. So again, small niche site, I'm assuming. I'm going to show just the keyword level data. Got some work to do. Now, this one, it doesn't really say that. It's a bit tongue-in-cheek, right? I mean, I'm assuming by the name, this is an Oktoberfest festival in the Triangle area. So it is very niche. It's, you've got craft beers in a small regional area. It's not going to have as high visibility as even Cheerwine. Okay, so I'm going to move to the next tool that we use. So this is a tool called hrefs. Anyone here use hrefs? Okay, some. So this is a tool for looking at your link graph. And I'll go ahead and, for those who don't maybe know, I'll explain what the link graph is. But it's the number of links that are pointing to your site and different interesting bits of information about those links. Who would like to see their link graph? Again, this is going out to anyone who's watching this and all those people in the room. But who would like to see your link graph? And I'll talk about some points that we pull out. Yes, sir. So the interesting thing about hrefs is you can actually perform a couple of searches per day for free. So if you are an individual, you can search your own site for free. If you're going to need to do more than that, then you would want a subscription plan. But there's a small plan that's pretty affordable. Okay. So this is one of the ways that we report to a client what their linking looks like. So if we're doing link building for a client, or if we notice, like sometimes we'll notice all of a sudden a huge surge in the link graph. So what you see here with the blue line is the total number of links, and the yellow line, which is probably harder to see, is the number of linking domains. So the total number of links, you may have a domain name, cheerwine.com, that's linking to you twice. So the blue line would represent 2, and the yellow line would represent 1 for the tier 1 domain. So that's basically what you're looking at here. The chart below it shows new and lost over time. So you can look at this, and this is I think a quarter. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. This is an annual look at this at a year worth of links for this. The X and Y axes, you have the total number of links, and then you have the dates for that. So you can look at it and see that for this particular site, the linking has been going down, which could be good or bad depending on what's going on there. So you can't really judge anything by that. It depends on what's happening with the site. Now, also, so a huge surge in links. Any guesses what might cause something like that? Popular content. That's a good yes. Say that again. WordPress blog roll. It could be, yes. You can also have a media mention and see a surge in links coming in. A big magazine or newspaper picks up a link to the client, and then you have a lot of bloggers who've read that who then link to it. Things like that, yes. So we use this tool again as a way to watch over our clients in sort of a protective way, but also as a way to report back progress. So if we're doing a campaign around a special project, or if the client has a microsite or something like that and we're doing some link building for it to promote it, we use this graph and other data related to this to show the progress over time of how that campaign is working for them. Some of the other interesting things that we can look at are incoming anchor text. This one they just actually recently added. It's called broken backlinks. So if you do broken backlink building, this is a really useful tool. I don't know if you'll have any. Nope. But that's actually really nice. That's a really nice feature. And it was kind of mystifying to me that they didn't actually announce that. We just kind of saw it one day, and I was like, oh, that's nice. Okay, so some of the things that we can also look at here are incoming anchors. So we can see. Oh, let me sign in. Okay. So you can see for this particular site, there's a lot of different types of anchors coming in, and the anchor is the blue text that makes up the link. So there's obviously PC-related stuff. There's some questionable ones here that you might want to check out. And let's see, you can actually look at the raw links coming in. You can look at referring domains. You can see where in the world they're coming from, which is actually really nice. So if you have a huge number of links coming in from somewhere like Pakistan, nothing against Pakistan, but they're not. If you're a U.S. company, you want more U.S. links than you do coming from Pakistan. If you've got a business in Pakistan, you want Pakistan links all day long. So here we can see where the link is coming from, the referring page. Internal and external links coming to and from that page, anchor text, the actual URL that it's pointing to, when it was last found, other data like that. So we can show this to a client to show how our progress is going. If we feel like that they're being impacted with negative SEO, which you get 5 SEOs in a room, you have 3 and 2 on either side of this issue, but we've seen it, and it does happen, and this tool is really useful for catching that when it is happening. Anybody else want me to run their domain through there? People are scared now. I don't want people looking at my links. hrefs, ahrefs.com. No updates, please. Okay. Any questions in general before I move on to the last tool that I was going to talk about? Okay. So the last tool is going to be a segue to our other speaker, Brian, but this is the Authority Labs tool, which we love. It's a great way for tracking how you're ranking for particular terms in a very sort of vanilla way. As you probably know, Google customizes your searches based on your own search browser history, your IP address, where you're physically located, yada, yada, yada. The Authority Labs tool, as you can see, we have it white labeled, but it's run by Authority Labs, and the tool does a great job of giving you a stripped out view of how you would rank if Google wasn't customizing anything for you. We use this all the time. For some clients who understand the context of this tool, we share it with them. For others who are fixated on ranking, we use it as an internal baseline measurement because we don't surface this tool if people are fixated on where they rank for one or two terms. But the really nice thing too that this tool does is it shows you where you currently rank in the different search engines for different words, but also it shows you the change and so on and so forth. But it has this great new feature that they just came out with called Now Provided. And this is their way of sort of demystifying the not provided keyword that Google has perturbed the entire SEO community with. And we've been using this now for several weeks and really love it. It's a great way of getting content ideas, surfacing areas where you could produce more content and those sorts of things. And as soon as it catches up, okay, here we go. So this actually integrates with Google Analytics and this tool, and it pulls all the data together and it shows you how many people are visiting a particular page and how that page is ranking, what keywords that you are tracking are referring or generating traffic and so on. I don't want to speak too much about it because that's Brian's thing, and I don't want to speak out of turn either. But you can see up here top keyword opportunities. So it's a really great way of surfacing opportunities for content, for building out new product pages, landing pages, and so on and so forth. Any particular questions about the other tools that I've mentioned, or any questions in general about measuring from an agency perspective or just as a business owner in general before I toss this over to Brian? Yes, ma'am. Yes. So the question was, do we integrate directly with CallRail as a white label, or do we let our customers integrate themselves? We prefer, in most instances with a situation like that, to let the customer sign up for the tool themselves. And the reason for that is because as an agency, we're very transparent and we want people to be able to take their data with them. So if for some reason they were to stop using our services, they would still be able to continue using CallRail, versus if we had a hold of the keys or something like that, then they'd have to keep paying us and so on. And we just, that's our own personal reason we do it that way. But for some clients, for most of our local clients, we actually do host that for them because we usually pick up the cost for them. But we always leave it up to the client. Do you want us to pay for this and host it on their own account, or do you want to sign up for your own account? Anybody else? Okay, so I'm going to turn this over to Senior Brian on the beautiful West Coast. Don't forget to unmute yourself there, Brian, and I'm going to turn off my screen share if I can.
Sounds good. Can you guys hear me? Yep. I guess. So I'm going to screen share here. It's my first time doing a Hangout on air, so let's see how this goes.
Brian, it's the second. We did one yesterday.
What was that?
Keep talking, Brian.
Okay. Cool. So here we're going to run through Authority Labs a little bit. Marty kind of covered a little bit of the surface of it. This is basically your dashboard, rundown of the domains that you've got in your account that you're tracking. This is broken down to my favorite domains. I can kind of do a quick overview of where my favorites are ranking on average across the keywords that I'm tracking for them, kind of what they've changed or what changes they've had over the specified time frame. Like if I switch to previous 7 days, they haven't changed a whole lot. Famous Dave's down here changed a little bit. Previous 30 days, it just kind of gives you a quick update of what's going on One thing that we recommend with tracking and to narrow down your results a little bit more and figure out what's going on from a more granular standpoint is breaking your keyword lists up into smaller groups of keywords rather than tracking thousands or even hundreds at a time. It's kind of hard to manage a list of hundreds of keywords, so we'll use this electronics category that's here as kind of an example. I've got Amazon, Best Buy, and Target. They're sharing the same keyword list. We're treating Target as a client, not really a client, but it's kind of a demo we've got set up here. So they're sharing the same keyword lists. You can see Amazon's keywords here. It's the same across all three. You can see their rankings. You can click over here and chart and see a graph over time. Break it out over a long period of time and kind of see how they're trending. It looks like over time, Amazon's slowly dropping on some of these keywords, not necessarily a lot of them. It's pretty steady, which I think we kind of expect Amazon to be. You can go back to the favorites here. Maybe it'll load. We'll go back to okay. We're going to go back into this electronics group, so we can compare side by side. Go back to that same keyword list, but this is looking side by side because we have these grouped and synced together as competing domains. I can look at where each domain is ranking for each engine. So, on iPad, you've got Amazon at 4th, Best Buy at 3rd. So this is a good way to get a quick overview of what you're looking at, from the standpoint of what your competitors are doing. You may have multiple sites and multiple locations, which I can show you on this famous Dave's group. Like if you're doing local search, one thing that we recommend is tracking on the zip code or city level. So we've got this broken down here into famous Dave's in 5 different zip codes or 5 different cities or 4 different cities, and then one that's just the global across the U.S. So you can kind of see there is some difference, but not really much from location to location. They're all pretty much ranked 6th for Famous Dave's sauce, 12th for Famous Dave's rub. They do a little bit better in Rogers, Arkansas for barbecue restaurants than they do in Little Rock or just across the country. And then El Centro, California, they're probably the only barbecue restaurant. So that's kind of that's something that we recommend is break lists down into smaller, more granular tracking, so you can get a better idea of how your campaigns are working at a local level, at a or just more specific, like on a group of terms, whether it's electronics or even down to radios or iPads or that kind of thing. Just because a lot of times it's easier to see trends within a group of keywords or small group of keywords or pages than it is to see across an entire site. Here's an example that we've got in here. This is Olive Garden in Chicago, Illinois. They don't rank organically anymore. They used to for a lot of these terms, but with the carousel, those have shifted up to being in the carousel results, and there's actually been a fair number of organic listings that have been removed that I've seen, and this is one example of that. You can see that they were kind of in and out of ranking organically. This is a history basically over the past, we store 2+ years of data. So you can see they were 2nd organically for several days, and then the carousel kicks in, removes them from the organic listings, and so that's something that you definitely want to keep an eye on. It's ideal to be in both places. I'm not sure why you would think that, for Italian restaurant, Olive Garden would probably rank, but I double checked earlier, and they weren't. They were not ranking anywhere in the top 100 within this location for Chicago, Illinois, for Italian restaurant, which was odd. But there's probably a lot of Italian restaurants in Chicago, so that maybe that's not all that odd. Then when you get down into tracking, tracking on a domain level, getting into your keyword list, another thing that we recommend is to break things down into tags. Tag your keywords, keep an eye on them. You can filter those within the interface. So if I want to filter just by product keywords, it'll tags, not keywords. If I want to filter by product related keywords, then I can filter by that or branded. So in the way that our interface is set up, it's set up to work as close as possible to a desktop application. We're loading all of this data in the back end. That's why the initial load may take just a little bit longer than normal, but we load all of the data in the back end, so everything happens in your browser without having to refresh anything. Sorting and filtering is a lot easier. Sorting by keyword, it's real easy to do, and then you can get an idea if you're looking for a specific keyword, where do you rank for it. Even if you've got a couple hundred in there, it's easy to narrow that down. Here, it's funny that Marty, that you were using pool companies, because I've got a friend that runs that designs pools, and so some of my examples here is pool related. So basically, this is if you're dealing with a little bit longer list of keywords, it's still short enough, but you can kind of get an idea. One thing that we recommend too to keep an eye on is over here. You can see these little these little result type indicators. This little bubble here is if we find a local result in the SERPs, we'll show that little bubble icon. If your site is within that local pack, then we'll list the letter. You can see down here the letter listed. So he's the first position in that particular local pack that shows up. We're also showing if rich snippets are in that SERP, or if images are showing up. If we find image results, that's something that you definitely want to keep an eye on. And if there's images showing up in the SERPs, you probably want to rank for or show up for some images. Same with video packs. If we find videos, then we'll make a note that, hey, we found videos. It's something you may want to look into if it's consistently showing a video day after day. In the search results, this is pretty consistently showing a video on a lot of the different days. So something to keep in mind. Or local packs are almost every day showing up in there. So just something to pay attention to. Getting into our now provided report, here's an example just of our site of authoritylabs.com, and this title tags, this #1 keyword opportunities. Basically, we're giving you kind of a rundown of maybe popular terms that are lower competition that you rank in the top 104, 54, 34, but outside of the top 3. Where you may want to take some time and put some effort into showing up for. You can skim this list real quick and just see these are terms that may be worth targeting or maybe worth taking some extra time to build. This title tags one here, that is a result of a post that went live last Thursday, and we're already showing data on that as being, hey, you're showing up for it. It might be something you want to keep an eye on, and we've already moved up. Like check about an hour ago, and now we're up to about 16th. We've had a lot of traffic and attention on that today, so it's been it's been helpful. But so this is kind of a rundown of what you might see on your own site if you plug it into or if you get the not provided or the now provided report set up, and you're looking for things that you want to target. Google title tag length as an example. That may be a term that I didn't think about or that we didn't think about, but hey, that's something to target if there's some search traffic to be had for it. This one, 50 searches a month, maybe not real popular, but if it's not competitive at all, it's it's worth keeping in mind. So the let's see, move on here so here's one of our favorite features of the now provided report. A good example of it is the number of pages driving Google search traffic by day. That's not something that you can get in analytics, at least easily. You can kind of hack your way around sort of getting an idea of it, but it's not going to give you the by day rundown. So we're kind of giving you here, you can see a year ago, there were 471 pages that were getting traffic, or they got traffic from Google search, all the way up to the last few days, almost 50% more, 624 or so searches. So that's a good indicator of, are you making progress in your campaigns? Are you building the right content? Are you targeting the right keywords? You definitely want to see this trending up as it's running to the right there. So that's a that's a good report, a good spot to pay attention to, regardless of how busy or small your site is. You're going to have some of that data there as far as how much organic traffic you're getting, and so that's definitely a good indicator for how well your SEO is working. This is kind of a smaller site. This is that Bianchi Design site. The pool designer friend of mine, he doesn't get a whole lot of traffic, but he doesn't necessarily need search traffic. He does a lot on house and pretty much stays busy with that. And then so yeah, that's kind of a quick rundown of what we've got as far as Authority Labs. The now provided report, we definitely recommend getting in, playing with that, giving that a shot, seeing how how your own sites are set up, and gaining some insights. There's all kinds of keywords to be looked at and found. Any of these types of things may be something that you're not necessarily paying attention to, but would be good targets and decent traffic, and give you kind of an idea of content that you might want to build around. So anyway, so with that, that's kind of a rundown of Authority Labs, and how you could get what you need as far as reporting and seeing how your campaigns are going with that. So.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
I've got a question for you.
Okay.
So, hold on. I'm going to get on my spot so you can see me. So, as an SEO guy, I was always happy to talk to clients about, here's where you're ranking. But over the last few years, what's become concerning is the personalization bubble that we all have to live in now. So I love that you guys say, here's the zip code, and you're over here, you're ranking 5, and down the coast you're ranking 3, that type of thing. But there's really no way to get into that personalization bubble that says, because I search for fiberglass pools all the time, I may not be exposed to Bunny if he does concrete pools and that type of thing, right? And I don't know if there's any programmatic way to get around that personalization. So when I think of any of the tools that do that kind of baseline, we're going to track where your ranking is, you're doing it with as little personalization as possible. Is that true?
Yeah. So we're looking at it with as little personalization as possible, and even in situations we've done a fair bit of testing to see how much personalization really exists. I mean, obviously there's location specific. Um, Even at worst, if you happen to be searching repeatedly for different keywords on the same topic, and you've clicked through to different sites, or you've liked or plus one different posts on related sites to what that query is, you're still only seeing a couple of the top 10 change. So really what you kind of want to look for is where are you within what's actually organically showing across the board for everybody. That's what you can control. You can't control a user's behavior and what they're getting personalized. So, still, at worst, 7 of the top 10 results you can still influence. So that's kind of how we've looked at it and seen just from our testing, having to do with the personalization.
The other one comes from something Dr. Pete said a couple of years ago at MozCon, where he said the first page for his 1,000 words or whatever the heck he tracks, there was about a 79% turn every day. Does that sound about right to you as far as just movement on the page? So number 1 might not leave the page, but it might drop to 2 and 2 to 1 or stuff like that. Does that churn of around 80% kind of jive with the numbers you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked at the exact percentages, but it does. I mean, I see it a lot, and we get a lot of questions from people where they may be looking at yesterday's rankings, and now they're two spots higher when they did a manual search, and they're like, "Why are you reporting us at 7 when we're 5th?" And that's a matter of that switching things around just day to day, or maybe they've popped in some news listings, or some days there's only 7 organic results on the first page. So yeah, I mean, for sure there's a lot more churn than people think. The first, second, and third position are usually pretty steady, at least from what I've seen and what I've tested and the keywords that I've run. I've got about 20,000 keywords that off and on I'll just run them through and see kind of what things look like. And the first couple of positions don't fluctuate a whole lot, but usually I think Google's pretty confident in who they're putting in those positions for the most part. So beyond that, it does definitely fluctuate, and even on subsequent pages, second, third, fourth page, things move a lot.
Last question about your particular app there is, how far down are you tracking people? If I'm at position 50, are you still tracking that stuff? If I'm at 300, where do you kind of draw the line?
So our cutoff point is between 100 and 120 results, depending on how many are showing on the first few pages of the SERPs. So expect 100 minimum, and if there's 10 results on every single page, then we'll go to 120.
All right. Are there other questions you guys have for Brian? There's no questions. That's a good demo when there's no questions. Or I kept them in the dark too long here and they dozed off.
Hopefully it made sense.
Did you have anything you wanted to add kind of beyond just your tool about just working with people over the last few years on how they're tracking success?
Yeah, I mean, tracking and reporting, one thing that I like to see, and one thing that we try to do with what we build with Authority Labs, is if you're looking at data and you're tracking or you're reporting to a client, one thing that I really stress is figure out actionable insights. Don't just throw out, hey, look, this is cool and pretty, if there's no reason to report on it, or at least expand on what you're reporting on. Here's the data, here's what you're seeing, here's why we're looking at it, and here's what you can gain from it, or here's what you can extract from it. Like the now provided report, you can look and see, well, what new content can I build? Here's a list of keywords that we can do a better job of writing about, or building links around, or that kind of thing. So with reporting, and tracking, always have the goal of how can I, what am I learning something from this, or am I teaching something from this that's going to be actionable? So that's kind of,
Yeah.
it's how to see things and approach things.
That's good advice. Marty, you want to jump in with words of wisdom before you, or just words? Yeah, I'll meet you halfway. How's that? Drop you off in front of the camera.
So I would just echo. So I would just echo what Brian was saying too about the actionable data, right? I mean, all this stuff that we've shown you tonight, it's a lot of information. It can be, you can use it wisely, or it can just be information for information's sake. So you definitely want to make it actionable. And really the key, I mean, particularly when you're working with clients, is to just ask. Here's what we think is important to report to you, but what information do you want to see, right? Because when you're doing SEO, you can do a great job for somebody, but if they don't know it, they don't see what they want to see, then it's not going to be useful to them. And really, for most people, it boils down to dollars, right? So everything that we report on, we track back to money if we can. How much money are we making for you? And that's really what people generally want to know. So the question was, the general SEO tools that we showed, what other tools are there for local SEO? So local SEO, we tend to use authority labs actually very heavily. What you saw with the zip code level data is very, very useful for us. Brian can actually pull some really interesting data for you, depending on what you need. But that data is really, I think, the most useful thing, particularly in our instance with some of our clients who are franchises, and they have, brick and mortar businesses in 25, 50, 100 different zip codes. Reporting at that level really requires a tool like Authority Labs. But that's even at a one zip code level, it's still extremely useful, because if you're a service-based company or a local business and you want to see how you're ranking in the local search pack and those sorts of things, it's really, in my opinion, the best one out there. Anybody else? Questions? I'll be around afterwards too, so feel free to come up and talk and that sort of thing. So Brian, Phil asked if there are other tools that you like that weren't mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, so some different tools that we use for tracking progress. KISS Metrics is one of those. That one's great because they have an API where we basically can push all kinds of different events and progress, and anything from the sign up to when we build a client, we can push that into KISS Metrics, and so we can see the lifetime value of a customer. We can see if we have an activation event, which is basically when somebody adds 100 keywords to their account, we consider them having activated their account because they've obviously gotten past the login and look at the example data that we start them with. So there's different things that we do and that we push into KISS Metrics. It's a huge help, and we've got dashboards built out of that, and it sends us daily emails giving us kind of a rundown and comparing it to the previous month, and it gets pretty complicated, but it's well worth using. Once you kind of get the hang of it and get it figured out, and I can track all the way from when they visit the site to when a client's billed. So that's a cool tool. I use Zapier, Zapier, for automating some of my tracking and just playing with a lot of different tools and matching up data sets. Basically, they have a whole bunch of different integrations with different tools, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or Google Docs or spreadsheets or just a whole ton of different options where you can push data between apps without having to write code, and you can filter by certain criteria. You can give it all kinds of different so you can have it search Twitter and drop that into a spreadsheet, which I've done for a couple different reasons and for tracking and some things, or there's a ton of different reporting that you can build out of Zapier without having to know any code, and it's cheap. I think I pay $2 a month, and it's plenty for what I do. So those are kind of my two people don't necessarily know about or use. Obviously, Google Analytics is great. Building your own dashboards in there, using custom events. I push on some sites with Google Analytics. I'll push in the author name as on every page view of the blog, and so basically I can track which authors are sending the most traffic across the entire blog, which is that's something that some people don't necessarily think to track, but hey, it's a great thing if you're trying to if you want to tell an author that they're not doing well enough, then that's a good spot to start, and it's a good report to build. So just dig into Google Analytics. There's all kinds of options with that, and like I said, the custom variables and the event for experimenting with things outside of the box with GA. So those are kind of my main things.
Have any questions for Brian or myself that you want to throw out in front of everybody? Okay. Thank you all very much. I'm going to hand this back over to Bill.
There I am on the big screen. That's it from Raleigh tonight. The last normal SEO meetup of the year is done. November and December, because of the holidays, we're going to squish into the middle of the month. But thank you very much to Brian, who's out in California, and to Marty, who's here in Raleigh. And thank you guys for coming. Thanks, Brian.
See ya.